Be me, Anna, 23, having coffee with my friend Sarah yesterday afternoon, sitting in this overpriced hipster cafe downtown, watching people through the window, lattes getting cold while we gossip about everything and nothing. Conversation drifts to relationships as it always does. Sarah suddenly remembers something and brings up my brother David again. Apparently, she's been wondering why he's still completely single at 28. Not even dating anyone, not even trying from what she can tell. Tell her he's been single for like 2 years now. Maybe longer, honestly. Can't even remember his last girlfriend at this point. Sarah looks genuinely confused by this concept. Keeps asking what's wrong with him, if he's weird or antisocial or something. Lean back in my chair, already knowing this conversation by heart. Explain that nothing's actually wrong with David physically or mentally. He's just completely hopeless when it comes to women. Has zero game, absolutely zero social skills in that department. Barely even tries to meet people anymore, just complains constantly. Always making pathetic excuses about how difficult modern dating is, how women are impossible to understand, how apps don't work. It's honestly embarrassing to listen to sometimes. Sarah nods along knowingly, says he's probably one of those guys who whines about dating apps. Meanwhile, every girl we know meets guys online all the time. She suggests I should help him out somehow. Points out that I'm attractive, understand what works with guys. Could probably get him dates easily if I just showed him what he's doing wrong. The idea starts forming in my head immediately. Been wanting to prove this point to David for months now. That his whole dating is impossible for men theory is complete garbage. Time to show him how simple this really is when someone competent takes over. Drive home around 6 p.m. feeling determined about this new mission. David's beat-up Honda already in the driveway as expected. Guy gets home from work and immediately becomes a hermit every single day. Find him sprawled across our old sectional couch watching Netflix. Probably the same exact position he was in yesterday and the day before. Living room smells like microwaved leftovers and general resignation. Decide to just dive right into the conversation I've been planning. Ask him when he last actually tried talking to a girl. Like seriously tried. Not just awkward small talk at the grocery store or whatever. He pauses his boring show and tells me about some barista at the coffee shop near work. Tried making conversation with her a few times when it wasn't busy. Asked about her day, mentioned the weather, basic stuff like that. She was polite, but obviously not interested. Just being professional. So naturally he gave up and stopped going to that coffee shop entirely. Classic David move right there. Retreat at the first sign of discomfort. Point out that he gave up because a service worker was nice to him. That's literally her job, being polite to customers who buy coffee. Ask if he actually asked her out, or just assumed she wasn't interested. He gets uncomfortable and starts explaining how he could tell she wasn't into it. How women make it obvious when they're not interested, apparently. Didn't want to be that creepy guy who bothers workers just trying to do their jobs. Shake my head at this completely defeatist attitude he's developed. Tell him he probably just can't read signals properly. Maybe she was waiting for a real move. He looks at me like I suggested climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops. Starts going into his usual speech about how different it is for guys. How I'm a pretty girl, so guys approach me all the time. How men have to do all the initiating and handle constant rejection. Most women don't even respond to dating app messages, apparently. The ones who do usually lose interest after 2 texts maximum. Here we go with the victim complex again, right on schedule. Tell him that's complete bullshit, and he knows it deep down. Plenty of average-looking guys have girlfriends and wives. They're not all models or millionaires with perfect jawlines. He's just making excuses, because actually trying is scary and uncomfortable. Or because he legitimately doesn't know what he's doing wrong. He runs hands through his hair looking frustrated, says he's tried everything. Dating apps, meeting people through friends, hobby groups, even speed dating. Nothing ever works out according to him, It's all hopeless. Lean forward to make my point clearer to his thick skull. Explain that he's probably doing everything wrong from start to finish. Sending boring messages, waiting too long to ask girls out, targeting women who are completely out of his league realistically. Girls can smell desperation and low confidence from miles away. It's like a built-in superpower most women develop by age 16. He stares at me blankly and asks what exactly I suggest he do differently. Hire some expensive dating coach? Get plastic surgery? Move to another city? Suddenly, the brilliant idea from the cafe crystallizes perfectly in my mind. Sit up straighter, feeling genuinely excited about this plan forming. Tell him I'm going to prove something important to him once and for all. Going to show him exactly how easy dating actually is when you know the rules, when you understand what you're doing instead of stumbling around blind. He raises both eyebrows skeptically, clearly not believing this is possible. Explain that I'm going to create him a proper dating profile that actually works. Show him how normal, socially competent people talk to potential dates. People who understand what makes women respond and stay interested. David immediately starts shaking his head and protesting. Doesn't want his sister involved in his dating life. Says it's crossing boundaries. But I'm getting more excited about this experiment by the minute. Tell him I know exactly what girls want to hear, what gets their attention, what makes them laugh and feel comfortable with a stranger online. He clearly doesn't know any of this, otherwise wouldn't be single at 28. Propose giving me 1 week with his dating apps, just to prove the point. Guarantee I'll get him more matches and actual meaningful conversations than he's had in the past 6 months of pathetic attempts combined. He's still protesting, but I can see him starting to waver slightly. Asking what if it backfires? What if someone finds out? What if I embarrass him? Wave away these concerns dismissively because they're completely irrelevant. Won't backfire because I actually understand what I'm doing here, unlike his current strategy of giving up before even getting started properly. David stares at the ceiling for a long moment, clearly torn, can practically see the internal battle between his pride and desperation. Finally asks if I really think it's that simple, that he's just doing everything wrong. Tell him I don't think it. I know it for certain beyond any doubt. He needs someone who understands female psychology and social dynamics, someone who knows how to be interesting and confident in text conversations, which he obviously doesn't based on his track record of complete failure. He sighs heavily and reaches for his phone after another minute of consideration. Agrees to let me try, but sets up conditions first, naturally. If this makes things worse, I owe him dinner for an entire month. And if anyone asks, this whole thing was entirely my idea from start to finish. Grab his phone before he can change his mind or add more stupid conditions. Tell him when this works perfectly, he owes me a sincere apology. Has to admit that dating isn't actually impossible for normal men, just that he was approaching it completely wrong this entire time. Spend the next 2 hours completely overhauling his pathetic digital presence. His existing profiles are somehow even worse than I imagined they'd be. Boring mirror selfies that make him look depressed and antisocial. Bio that reads exactly like a resume someone submitted to HR. Sample messages he's sent that sound like job applications or tax forms. No wonder he's not getting any responses from actual human women. This makes him sound like an accountant having some kind of midlife crisis. Delete absolutely everything and start completely from scratch with fresh approach. Pick his best photos from the past year, ones where he actually looks happy. Write new bio that shows some actual personality instead of listing credentials. Craft opening message templates that are flirty without being creepy. Confident without coming across as arrogant or desperate. David watches nervously as I work, clearly having second thoughts about this. Keeps asking if I'm sure about this strategy, What if girls expect someone different? Tell him he'll just have to learn to be more interesting in real life then. Upload everything and immediately start swiping through potential matches, matching with reasonably attractive girls left and right, exactly as predicted. Way more success in 10 minutes than he probably had all last month. David looks genuinely shocked by these immediate positive results. Can't believe how easy I'm making this whole process look. Explain that it's working because I actually know what I'm doing here. Unlike his previous amateur hour attempts at online dating, start messaging his new matches with confident, playful opening lines. Nothing too forward or sexual, but definitely not boring generic stuff either. Asking about their hobbies and interests, making light jokes where appropriate, showing genuine curiosity about them without seeming desperate for attention. Within an hour, have 3 active conversations going simultaneously. Girls actually responding with full paragraphs instead of one-word answers, sending laughing emojis, asking questions back, seeming genuinely engaged. David just sits there watching in complete amazement at this transformation. Show him the conversations developing on his phone screen. Explain that I'm being confident, but not pushy or aggressive, asking them about things they clearly care about based on their profiles, making them laugh without trying too hard, or being a dancing monkey. It's not rocket science, just basic social skills applied properly. He reads through the messages looking genuinely confused by something, points out that these are just normal conversations between normal people. Exactly. That's the entire point I've been trying to make. By midnight, have successfully lined up 2 potential coffee dates for the weekend. One girl even suggested meeting tomorrow evening after work if he's free. David looks like he's witnessed some kind of impossible miracle happening. Can't believe how effortless I made this whole process appear to be. Feel incredibly smug about proving my point so quickly and decisively. Tell him it was always this simple. He just needed someone competent in charge. Someone who actually understands how women think and what they respond to. Hand him back his phone with all these active conversations in progress. Explain that his dating life is now officially fixed and functional. Just needs to avoid screwing it up by reverting to his usual boring personality. Keep the confident energy I established with these girls from the beginning. Be interesting. Don't overthink every single word. Stop being so neurotic. David nods eagerly while staring at his phone in complete disbelief, acting like I just performed actual magic instead of basic social competence. Go to bed feeling absolutely incredible about this successful intervention. Knew this would be easy once someone with actual skills took control. David's dating problems were clearly just massive user error this whole time. Nothing that couldn't be fixed with a little female intuition and common sense. Tomorrow, he'll probably wake up to even more matches and messages waiting. Maybe by the end of this week, he'll actually have a real girlfriend finally. Sometimes being completely right about everything feels absolutely amazing. Wake up next morning feeling like a dating genius. Check David's phone immediately to see overnight progress. 3 new matches, 2 more messages from yesterday's conversations. One girl sent her number without even being asked. This is going even better than expected, honestly. David shuffles into kitchen looking confused and slightly panicked. Spent half the night reading through all these conversations, apparently. Doesn't understand how I made it look so effortless. Explain that today's the real test, though, keeping momentum going. Anyone can get initial matches. Maintaining interest is where most guys fail. Show him how to respond to the new messages properly. Keep the same confident energy. Don't get weird or desperate. He watches nervously as I craft responses that sound natural and engaging. Within an hour, have 2 more potential dates lined up for this week. David keeps asking if this is sustainable. Seems too good to be true. Spend my lunch break managing his conversations from work, checking his phone every few minutes to keep response times reasonable. Girls seem to appreciate quick replies that aren't just "hey" or "LOL," actually putting thought into each message, asking follow-up questions, showing genuine interest in their lives and hobbies. By end of day, have 5 active conversations with actual substance. This is easier than managing my own dating life, honestly. Get home to find David pacing around the living room anxiously. First coffee date is tomorrow evening, and he's completely freaking out. Worried that he won't be able to maintain the personality I created online. What if she realizes he's not as confident or interesting as his messages? What if the conversation dies after 10 minutes of awkward silence? Roll my eyes at this predictable anxiety spiral he's having. Spend the evening coaching him on basic date conversation skills, topics to bring up, questions to ask, how to keep things flowing naturally. Remind him that I already did the hard part of getting her interested. Now he just has to not completely blow it by being himself. She's already invested enough to agree to meet in person. That's the biggest hurdle, according to everything I know about dating. Tuesday evening arrives, and David leaves for his coffee date. Wearing the outfit I picked out, armed with conversation topics I suggested. Feel genuinely excited to hear how this victory plays out. Spend the time responding to his other matches to keep those warm. One girl suggests drinks this weekend, another wants to do lunch Friday. Having multiple options is exactly what David needs for his confidence. He returns 2 hours later, looking deflated and confused, sits heavily on the couch without saying anything for several minutes, finally explains that the date was fine, but nothing special happened. Conversation was okay, she seemed nice enough, no obvious red flags, but she texted afterward saying she didn't feel a romantic connection. Thanks for the coffee, but doesn't want to meet again. Tell him that's completely normal. Not every first date leads to something. The important thing is that he got the date in the first place. That's more progress than he's made in months of trying alone. Still have 4 other active conversations to focus on anyway. One rejection doesn't mean the system isn't working perfectly. Rest of the week continues with mixed results that start feeling frustrating. Managed to set up 3 more dates through his various app conversations. Girls seem interested in the chat, agreeing to meet relatively easily. But something keeps going wrong during the actual face-to-face meetings. Either they're not interested afterward, or David screws something up. Friday lunch date goes similarly to the coffee situation. Girl is friendly during the meal. Conversation seems fine from his description. But afterward, she says she's not looking for anything serious right now. Suggests they could be friends, but clearly means she's not attracted. David starts questioning whether my messaging strategy is creating false expectations. Maybe I'm presenting him as more confident than he actually is in person. Weekend drinks date is even worse somehow. Girl shows up, stays for exactly 1 drink, makes excuse about early morning. Clearly wanted to leave as soon as possible after meeting him. David comes home looking genuinely defeated for the first time. Says maybe his original assessment was right about dating being hopeless. I'm starting to feel slightly less confident about this whole experiment. Spend Sunday evening analyzing what might be going wrong here. My messaging game is clearly working to get these initial meetings, but something about David himself is failing to seal the deal. Maybe he's more awkward in person than I realized. Or maybe these girls had different expectations based on my confident texts. Still refuse to believe that dating is actually as difficult as he claims. Monday morning brings fresh motivation and new matches to work with. Decide to adjust strategy slightly, be more selective about who I message. Focus on girls who seem more down to earth, less likely to have super high standards. Maybe I was aiming too high with some of the more attractive matches. David needs confidence builders, not more brutal rejections right now. Spend the week casting a wider net, messaging more girls with different approaches. Some get the confident, playful treatment. Others get more genuine, sincere messages. trying to figure out what type of person would actually click with David's real personality. Response rates are still good, much better than his solo efforts ever were. But converting online interest into actual dates is becoming more challenging. Girls start flaking more often now for some reason. Agree to meet, but then cancel last minute with vague excuses. Or worse, just stop responding entirely after agreeing to specific plans. David notices this pattern developing and starts getting frustrated with me. Points out that this is exactly what he was dealing with before my intervention. By the end of second week, have managed only 2 actual meetups. Both end the same way as the previous dates, polite rejection afterward. David sits me down for a serious conversation about calling this whole thing off. Says he appreciates the effort, but it's clearly not working the way I predicted. Maybe his original approach was bad, but my approach isn't solving the real problem either. Refuse to give up this easily. Insist we just need to refine the strategy more. Maybe the issue is the types of places he's meeting these girls. Coffee dates and lunch meetings are too formal, too much pressure. Suggest trying more casual meetups, group activities, less date-like situations. Anything to get past whatever barrier is preventing real connections from forming. David looks exhausted by this whole process now in a way he never did before. Says the constant rejections are actually worse when they come after getting hopes up. At least when he was messaging girls himself, expectations were low from the start. Now he's experiencing rejection at a much higher frequency and intensity. Each failed date feels worse because it seemed so promising initially. Spend the weekend trying to understand what exactly is going wrong here. Review all the successful conversations I've had on his behalf. Girls seem genuinely interested in the person I'm presenting through text. Funny, confident, interesting guy with his life together. But something about real David isn't matching up to this digital persona. Sunday evening revelation hits while scrolling through his photos again. Maybe the problem isn't his personality or social skills at all. Maybe it's something more basic that I've been refusing to acknowledge. Something about physical attraction or chemistry that can't be faked through clever messaging. Start wondering if I've been solving the wrong problem this entire time. Monday morning, check his phone to find several matches have unmatched overnight. Girls who seemed interested just disappeared without explanation. Other conversations that were going well suddenly go cold and die. Response rate dropping significantly compared to the first few days. Something has definitely changed, but can't figure out what exactly. David notices the decline too and brings it up during dinner. Points out that initial success might have been beginner's luck. Or maybe the app algorithms changed. Or maybe I was messaging better girls initially. Suggests maybe we should try a completely different approach or just give up. Still refuse to admit that this might be harder than I originally thought. Spend evening researching dating app strategies online frantically, trying to figure out what successful people do differently. Most advice seems obvious and basic, stuff I'm already doing. Be confident, be interesting, ask engaging questions, don't be desperate. But clearly something crucial is missing from my understanding of this process. Late-night realization that maybe I've been approaching this backwards, focused so much on getting matches and initial interest, but completely ignored what happens during and after the actual meetings. Can't control David's in-person presence through my phone screen, and maybe that's where the real challenge exists for guys like him. Fall asleep feeling genuinely confused for the first time since starting this. What seemed like simple female intuition isn't translating into actual results. Beginning to suspect there might be factors I don't fully understand, things about male dating experience that aren't as straightforward as assumed, but still not ready to admit David might have been right all along. Third week starts with me doubling down on different strategies. Maybe the problem is timing. messaging girls at wrong hours, or maybe I need to be more aggressive about setting up dates faster. Perhaps giving them too much time to think leads to flaking. Spend Monday morning crafting new approaches based on online research. Try being more direct, more playful, more mysterious in different conversations. Anything to break through whatever wall we keep hitting. David's enthusiasm has completely disappeared by now. Goes on dates like he's attending job interviews for positions he doesn't want. Comes home with the same defeated expression every single time. Starts describing the rejections in more detail that makes me uncomfortable. Girls being polite, but clearly uninterested. Checking phones constantly during conversations. Some making excuses to leave early. Others just going through the motions. Wednesday evening, he comes back from another failed coffee meetup. This time, the girl was actually rude about it. Didn't even pretend to be interested. Spent most of the date on her phone. Gave one-word answers to his questions. When he asked about meeting again, she said she was busy indefinitely. David sits down heavily and says something that stops me cold. Tells me this happens to him constantly, even before my intervention started. Ask him what he means by constantly, thinking he's exaggerating for sympathy. He explains that this is his normal experience with dating, has been for years. Most girls who agree to meet him seem disappointed when they see him in person. Conversations that flowed online suddenly become awkward and stilted face to face. Many dates end early with transparent excuses about family emergencies or early mornings. The polite rejections afterward are actually the kind ones. Feel genuinely confused by this information because it doesn't match my worldview. Ask him if maybe he's misreading social cues or being too pessimistic. Surely some of these dates must have gone better than he's describing. David looks at me with this tired expression I've never seen before. Says, I can believe him or not, but this is his actual lived experience. Not some incel fantasy or excuse-making, just the reality he deals with. Spend Thursday evening really analyzing the patterns we've established. My messaging definitely works better than his original attempts. Getting matches and initial conversations isn't the problem anymore. Girls seem genuinely interested in the person I present through text, but something fundamental breaks down during actual face-to-face meetings. And it's breaking down consistently, not just occasionally. Friday brings the most uncomfortable realization yet. Managed to set up another date for David with a girl who seemed really engaged. She was laughing at my jokes, asking personal questions, suggesting activities. Seemed like the type of down-to-earth person who would appreciate his genuine personality. Spend extra time coaching him on conversation topics she mentioned being interested in. Feel optimistic that this one might finally work out differently. He leaves for the date wearing his best outfit, armed with talking points about her hobbies. Actually seems somewhat hopeful for the first time in weeks. I spend the evening feeling proud of matching him with someone compatible. Girls seem genuinely sweet and interested in getting to know him better. Maybe all those previous failures were just practice leading to the success. David returns an hour and a half later, looking completely broken. Doesn't say anything for 20 minutes, just stares at the wall. Finally explains what happened in detail that makes my stomach drop. Girl arrived, took one look at him, and her entire demeanor changed instantly. Went from enthusiastic texting personality to cold and distant within seconds. Apparently, she spent the whole date acting like she was trapped there. Gave short answers, didn't ask any questions back, kept checking the time. When he mentioned something funny from their text conversations, she barely smiled. After exactly 1 hour, she said she had to leave for a friend's emergency. Texted him later that evening saying she wasn't ready to date anyone right now, but he saw her active on the dating app again within hours. Something about the way David describes this particular rejection hits differently. Not his usual complaints about dating being difficult or women being picky, but genuine hurt and confusion about why someone would be so cruel. Why agree to meet someone if you're going to treat them like a leper? Why waste both people's time with obvious lies and fake emergencies? Spend the weekend in a weird headspace I've never experienced before? Keep thinking about all the failed dates from his perspective instead of mine. Imagining what it would feel like to have someone's interest evaporate instantly, to watch someone go from excited to disgusted in the span of seeing your face, to deal with that rejection over and over again for months or years. Monday morning brings a message from one of his matches that really bothers me. Girl we've been texting for over a week suddenly sends a brutal response, says she looked at his photos again and doesn't think we're compatible after all, but phrase it in a way that's clearly about his physical appearance, not his personality or interests or anything I've been representing through text. Something about this direct honesty is worse than the polite rejections. David notices me staring at the phone screen, looking upset. Asks what's wrong, and I show him the message without thinking. He reads it with no visible reaction, just nods like this is completely normal. Explains that this type of response used to devastate him when he first started online dating. But now he's almost grateful when girls are honest, instead of wasting his time. At least she told him directly, instead of leading him on, or standing him up. Spend Tuesday thinking about all the matches who unmatched without explanation. All the conversations that died suddenly after we exchanged more photos. All the dates where girls seemed disappointed from the moment they arrived. Patterns I dismissed as coincidence or bad luck that might be something else entirely. Something about physical attraction that I never had to think about as a woman. Wednesday evening, David sits me down for another serious conversation. Says he appreciates everything I've tried to do, but wants to call off the experiment. The constant cycle of hope and rejection is wearing him down more than his old approach. At least when he got fewer matches, he had lower expectations about outcomes. Now every failed date feels worse because it seemed so promising through text. Try to argue that we just need more time, different strategies, better screening. Maybe focus on personality compatibility over physical attraction somehow. Or find girls who are more open-minded about different types of guys. David shakes his head and says something that stops all my protests cold. Points out that I've never experienced what he goes through on these dates. Ask him what he means by that, feeling defensive about my dating expertise. He explains that I've never had someone look at me with disappointment or disgust. Never had to watch someone's interest die in real time during a conversation. Never dealt with the specific type of rejection that men face in dating, where your worth as a person gets evaluated and dismissed within seconds. Feel genuinely angry at this suggestion that I don't understand rejection. Tell him about times guys have lost interest in me or chosen other girls, about getting ghosted or having relationships end badly or feeling unwanted. David listens patiently, then says those experiences aren't the same thing at all, that I've never been the one doing all the approaching and initiating. Spend Thursday night lying awake thinking about this conversation, trying to remember times I actively pursued someone who wasn't interested, versus times someone pursued me and I wasn't feeling it back. Realize that most of my dating experiences have been from the position of choosing, not the position of hoping to be chosen by someone else. Friday brings another brutal reality check I wasn't prepared for. Checking David's phone during lunch break when a new match messages him. Girl seems interested initially, conversation going well for the first few exchanges. Then she asks for more recent photos than what's on his profile. Send her a couple good ones from last month, nothing misleading or deceptive. She responds an hour later with a message that makes me feel physically sick. Says he seemed more attractive in his profile photos and doesn't want to meet, but phrases it so bluntly that there's no pretending it's about anything else. Just straight up tells him he's not good-looking enough for her standards, then immediately unmatches, so he can't even respond or ask questions. Stare at this interaction for several minutes, trying to process what just happened. Girl went from interested to completely dismissive based purely on seeing clearer photos. Nothing about personality or compatibility or shared interests mattered at all. Just immediate physical judgment that ended everything instantly. Never realized this could happen so casually and frequently. David finds me sitting quietly at dinner, not touching my food. Asks if everything's okay, and I show him the latest brutal rejection. He glances at it with zero surprise or emotional reaction whatsoever. Says this type of thing happens probably twice a week on average. Sometimes girls are more polite about it, but the message is always the same. Ask him how he deals with this level of constant rejection without going insane. How he maintains any self-esteem or motivation to keep trying at all. David shrugs and says, "You either get used to it or you stop trying entirely." Most guys he knows have either developed thick skin or given up completely. The ones who can't handle it usually become bitter and angry about women. Spend the weekend in a completely different mindset than when this started. Keep thinking about every interaction from the past 3 weeks differently. All those enthusiastic text conversations that led to disappointed dates. All those polite rejections that were probably much harsher in reality. All the girls who unmatched or ghosted without explanation, suddenly making sense. Sunday evening have the most uncomfortable realization of this entire experience. Maybe David was never bad at dating in the way I thought he was. Maybe he was just dealing with challenges I never had to face or understand. Maybe the problem wasn't his approach or confidence or social skills at all. Maybe it was something much more basic that no amount of clever texting could fix. Monday morning, delete all the dating apps from his phone without asking permission. Can't stand the thought of managing another conversation that will lead nowhere. Or setting him up for another crushing rejection, disguised as a polite coffee date. David notices but doesn't say anything, just nods like he expected this. Spend the day thinking about everything I said to him over the past month, how confident I was that dating was simple and he was just doing it wrong. How smugly I dismissed his complaints about modern dating being difficult. How certain I was that female intuition could solve his problems easily. Feeling genuinely ashamed of my arrogance for the first time in years. That evening, find David reading on the couch, same spot where this all started. Sit down next to him, but don't say anything for several minutes. Finally, work up the courage to ask if he's angry about how this turned out. He closes his book and looks at me with something like sympathy. Says he's not angry because he tried to warn me this would happen. Tell him I'm sorry for not believing him about how difficult dating actually is. For thinking his problems were just incompetence or lack of confidence. For dismissing his experiences as excuses or self-pity or victim mentality. David nods quietly and says, "Most women don't understand what it's like. Because they experience dating from a completely different position." Ask him how he stays positive about relationships when facing this much rejection. How he doesn't become bitter or resentful toward women in general. David thinks for a moment, then says, "Bitterness only makes everything worse. That most women aren't cruel on purpose. They're just honest about what they want. And what they want isn't necessarily what he has to offer." Sit in silence for a long time, processing everything that happened. Thinking about how confident I was just a month ago that I understood dating. How simple everything seemed from my perspective as an attractive woman. How completely wrong I was about the challenges men face in modern dating. How naive my assumptions were about attraction and compatibility and rejection. Finally understand why David seemed so tired when talking about this stuff. Not tired from lack of trying, but tired from years of constant disappointment. tired from having his worth evaluated and rejected over and over again, tired from pretending that kind of treatment doesn't affect him emotionally, tired from people like me telling him he's just not trying hard enough. Go to bed that night feeling like I learned something important but uncomfortable. Something about dating and relationships that I never wanted to acknowledge. About how different the experience can be depending on which role you play. About how much harder it is to be the one who has to prove their worth, rather than the one who gets to decide if someone else is worth your time. Next morning, wake up and look at David differently than I have in years. Not as my hopeless brother who can't figure out simple social interactions, but as someone dealing with challenges I never had to face myself. Someone who's been handling constant rejection with more grace than I would have. Someone who deserves more respect than I've been giving him. Never mention the dating experiment again after that, and David never brings it up either. But something fundamental changed in how I understand his situation, and maybe in how I understand dating in general. Some lessons can only be learned through experience, even secondhand experience.